What was the first part of the question?
Basically, that was it. I was wondering if you had seen any examples of how teachers were, I don't want to say judged, but how you were held accountable, if teachers were held accountable, because I know if you work for a company, even if my client happens to be very difficult, or the people I'm selling to are very difficult people, if I still don't meet my bottom line, I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, I have to deal with parents, and I have to deal with my administrator. They come in, and again, it comes down to how well your administration runs their ship. And I have a great working relationship with my principal. I think he's a great guy. He'll drop into the classrooms all the time. There'll be sort of unscripted or unofficial visits, and there'll be official evaluations, and there are lots of ways in which we are held accountable. And if there is a teacher who's not doing their job, there's nobody that's more interested in getting them out of that classroom than me and my colleagues, who are going to be judged on that teacher's perception in the community by their parents and stuff, that we're all like that. So, but the thing is, it's just like in the criminal justice system. You have to cross your T's, dot your I's. That person, I know people are going to roll their eyes, but they have due process rights. They have the right to like a fair trial, and unfortunately, a lot of administrators don't want to take the time and trouble to do that.
If I can respond, there are no merit pay proposals that are of the nature that he's described. Michelle Rhee in Washington, D.C. proposed one where half of a teacher's evaluation would be from 5 completely outside observers who would come and observe the teacher teaching. And the other half is what's called value-added data for testing. Now, what this means, imagine for a moment you're a 5th grade teacher, and your kids, at the end of the year, instead of reading at 5th grade level, they're reading at 4th grade level. Okay? But imagine if at the beginning of the year they were at 2nd grade level. You brought them 2 years in 1 year.
Right.
And you could look at the same data and say, you're a terrible teacher, your kids are a year behind, they're supposed to be 5th grade, they're only 4th grade, we're going to put you on probation, maybe fire you or whatever. Or you could look at the exact same testing data and say, you're a rock star. You brought those kids 2 years worth of learning in 1 year.
Right.
So it's not about, you can use data in a smart way or a dumb way. And the straw man often presented by unions is, well, look at the stupid way to use data. That's why we should never evaluate anyone. See, nepotism can exist, therefore we should never evaluate anyone. As you correctly pointed out, in every other industry there can be nepotism, but the answer isn't then don't evaluate anyone. The answer is evaluate them as intelligently as you can. And so that's regarding tenure, Indiana does have tenure, and I understand this is an issue of semantics sometimes. But the first question I was asked, and I would ask any journalist to ask on this question is, when people start talking about tenure, the first question should be how many tenured teachers, or how many teachers with 3 or more years experience were let go because of merit in the last year in your school district? How many? Was it 1? Was it 20? We showed an entire county where not 1 in 10 years had been let go. This is in Los Angeles, the same kind of data, 0.02% in Los Angeles data. All around the country it's the same, and it's the same in Indiana. So I would urge you to not be lost in the semantics, but actually look at the percentage of teachers that are let go because of lack of merit, not just seniority in a cutback, but because of lack of merit. And I know Quincy you're going to add something to this?
No, I'm not an expert on merit-based legislation here in the state right now. Focus on the charter and the voucher bills we have. But I know that our merit-based pay legislation is based on student growth annually. So it's not to say, hey, this teacher, Mr. Smith, has great students in his classroom, so those students are going to perform better, therefore he's going to get paid more. And teacher XYZ down the street, he has terrible students, so he's going to end up getting paid less because the students aren't performing. So there is a formula that's in place that makes it more of a fair manner.
The RAND Corporation, in Los Angeles right now, Los Angeles Times released RAND Corporation data. They aggregated 8 years. They looked at not only value added of how long you brought them this year, but average out over thousands of students. How well did those particular students do the year before Mr. Smith, the year after Mr. Smith, versus the year with Mr. Smith, those same students. So there are ways they can statistically control for the kinds of things he's talking about. What if you just get assigned that, slower kids or smarter kids or whatever? There are ways to control for that. And every merit evaluation system also includes personal observation. Like half of the score is always personal observation in all of the roles I've seen in Washington and New Jersey. Go ahead, sir.
I want to ask you a question about your film. You use the word proficient
That's the language from
a number of times in the film. Does the word proficient always mean the same thing each time it's used?
It's a statistical term used in the Department of Education NAEP test. In fact, I looked up.
You also used it with respect to New Jersey.
That's right. So the NAEP test is given in all 50 states. It includes New Jersey data, and the New Jersey data we showed had to do with the percentage proficient based on the DOE definition in that state. And I have Indiana's numbers too.
No. You use the word proficient with respect to NAEP, but you also use the word proficient for kids who are proficient on New Jersey reading test. That's a different test.
No.
Yes.
No. What I'm telling you is the data you saw was the New Jersey part of the NAEP test. You're correct, there is also, every state after No Child Left Behind has its own tests, which are all generally easier than the NAEP test. You have much higher proficiency numbers. That's true. They gave easier tests, virtually every state has higher proficiency numbers on its own state test versus what that state shows on the NAEP. But I was consistent in the film of using all the NAEP numbers. And that's also the number I have here for Indiana, by the way. I did not use the New Jersey proficiencies. Meaning their New Jersey ASK is their middle school test, and they have another test for high school. Those were not.
So when you were showing the New Jersey data, that was NAEP.
That was, yes.
What does proficient mean with respect to NAEP? What does it mean to be proficient in NAEP?
It has.
What does that correspond to?
All right. So the Department of Education, when determining standards, they could just release raw numbers that no one understands, but they decided to attach some sort of qualifier to numbers so they would have some sort of meaning. And so they have what's called basic, and they have what's called proficient, and then they have advanced. They have these three qualifications as to how the kids test, the average test scores. And so we can look up sample questions if you'd like, and because those are readily available online. You can see here's an average, here's a given question, this is the percentage of kids that got this wrong versus got it right. For all three, you can look up basic, proficient, and advanced. So we use that's the data we use.
One thing I would say, when the girls talked about, how they would say, yeah, they're in a school, they know that they have to behave or they're gone. There's a waiting list. You saw those kids crying. They would love to take their place. So they know that I have to mind my P's and Q's at this school, I go to the other school. Of course, it may be a safe, and I wouldn't want my child to be, my sons that I actually taught, both my sons, to be in an unsafe environment. But, the environment is different. Those parents have got those kids in that school and they know that they have to achieve, and whether those 50% of those Indianapolis students would still drop out or still not meet their standards wherever they were, given their environment, I don't think has to do with whether they're in the public school or whether they're in that charter school. Because charter schools have a lot more failure stories than we're showing here in terms of those who dropped out of the program. It's
That's
too
true.
rigorous.
He's right about that.
Parents, I'm sorry, they do require maybe off the books or not in front of the cameras, but they have to participate, they have to volunteer. A lot of those parents can't if they're working. The cost of the price of the voucher doesn't cover the transportation. It doesn't cover the cost of uniforms and fitting in with the kids that they're with.
That's argument for raising the price.
It's a larger argument than you're showing. That voucher's not going to cover what they would need, and what they would need is more than the public system can afford to lose. I'm sorry, but I don't buy that argument that, whenever anybody starts talking about throwing money down a rat hole, I stop listening.
Well,
And that
charter
term is
schools are-
used by too many people in too many situations, politicians included. Some of my Republican friends have learned not to use that terminology, because I am, like I said, I am not some liberal union representative, Democrat, wacko. I am my family's been Republican since pioneer days in South Dakota. My dad was Commissioner Motor V in South Dakota. His job depended on Archie Guru being governor. My mom and my grandma were county officials. I myself have been an elected official here in this city. I don't consider myself a liberal. I don't consider myself a conservative either. But when I got my job teaching, I learned that education was my bread and butter. And I found more and more and more, and especially this year, that the people who are talking the language that I like, and it's not just about my job security, it's about education and valuing public schools, are not sitting on the Republican side of the aisle, unfortunately. We need more senators like Ronnie Alting and fewer speakers like Brian Bosma, I'm sorry.
Well, charter schools are public schools. The only difference is that they're not frequently, although sometimes they are, but they're usually not unionized. So generally, the union doesn't like the idea of charter schools in most cases because it's not their money. It's not, they don't control it. But it's a public school. It's just as public as the other schools. It's public money. They've got teachers and blackboards and principals and lockers. There's a building. There's another building there. Public money for both. It's just they say, well, this one's bad. This one drains from us. So
No,
it's bad.
we have no problem with public school charters, with public school choice. If you want to send your kid to Harrison because you think that Jeff is drug-ridden or something, which is not.
As long as they're unionized. As long as they're unionized.
But I don't care. But but you have to transport them yourself. I had a kid, great kid. He's going with me to Washington this weekend, but he had to move to Wea because his mom, they moved out to the county, and it was just too much for her to be able to transport him back and forth to Tecumseh herself. And I hated to lose Tyler, but that's the way it goes.
I mean-
I hate to perseverate on this, so I want to get back to the snake point.
Go ahead.
You presented NAEP scores for New Jersey.
That's right.
Late in the film, you presented proficiency scores at a specific school.
That's right. That's
And those were
three schools.
And those were NAEP scores?
Let's see. I think those might have been the state's test, but that was apples to apples because I was comparing the charter school in that was still apples to apples because we compared the charter school state test to the district school state test in the same frame of video.
What I'm asking you is, does the word proficient mean the same thing when you're talking about NAEP and when you're talking about the New Jersey tests?
It does not. You're correct. It does not mean the same thing. The New Jersey tests, as most state tests, like I said, are different. So you're right. I didn't know you were referring to that frame. That frame is comparing charter school proficiency on the same piece of video to district school, and those are state tests. Those are state tests.
And that probably didn't make it better. That probably didn't make it.
I don't think there's. I think it's if it apples to apples between these two schools, whether they take the same test number A or take the same test number B, the raw numbers might be different, but the disparities would still be present. I would argue.
I learned a lot from this documentary, but I just wanted to know why, or your idea behind interviewing that one woman. I guess she was like the director of Teachers Union. What was she?
Joyce Powell, the president of the New Jersey Teachers Union.
Okay. Obviously, she's a very important source, but by interviewing her over and over again, clearly you don't agree with what she's saying, right? So
And
it
it's
just
very,
seemed
very
like
close up. Did you notice?
No, the whole film.
And the pictures and then you saw it break away, and you saw the pictures of him giving those like sophomoric looks. I mean, it was like, I'm sorry, but it was very obvious to me what you were supposed to come away with as far as your opinion of this woman.
Yeah,
I'm
you're supposed to hear
sure,
about the students.
that the.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, what your idea behind that is, because
First of all, I can cite you 10 other super tight shots in the film. You're correct, hers was a tight shot, but there was no shortage of very tight shots. I learned that from 60 minutes. I learned that from 60 minutes. Yeah, but I'm sorry, what was your question?
so kind of what they were touching on, like, to me it seemed a little skewed.
Oh, what skew?
Just the fact that you kept interviewing her, and maybe another source. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Kept interviewing. I mean, we had one interview, but you mean that I used multiple clips of her?
Multiple clips from that.
I mean, I thought that would be, in other words, in the editing of the film, we took great care to not, like, change anybody's. We didn't, like, edit someone to misrepresent any of their views. It's not like anything she said is something she didn't believe. It's not like I took this word and that word and edited it together so it's a different meaning. It's not like she hates tenure and I made it look like she likes tenure. Everything she said is exactly what she believes. There's not a statistic in the film that's been questioned by the union or anyone else. There's not a quote that's been claimed to be taken out of context. So when she says 99.97% should be celebrated, that's what she said.